G'day, Nigel from Sax School. Okay, so today we're going to have some fun talking about the Faces of the Heart solo from Dave Koz, but we're going to talk about how you can make up your own solo over this tune. Now, this is a really interesting tune to work through actually and talk about solos, because we can start off by making up our own solo using some very, very easy skills, and we can then expand on it, and I'll show you some tricks that you can do some more advanced things with the solo as well to make some more choices. So we're going to start with some easy tips to get you started. I'm also going to give you some sneaky extra little bits in the middle, and I'm going to show you some more advanced tips that you can use to improvise over this tune. There's a practice backing track I've made up for you which just covers the solo section, so there's loads of stuff to get started with. Right, okay, so let's dig in straight away. So we're talking, hopefully first of all, that you've looked at the original melody lesson for Faces of the Heart. There was also a solo, that the original Dave Koz solo lesson. That was a good one to work through as well. And now we're going to talk about improvising over it. So the improvised section we're talking about in the original music is from figure D. I think it's like bar 33 to bar 40. If we look at that section of 8 bars, it's actually 2 sections of 4 bars, and essentially the chords are the same all the way through those 4 bars. On the alto saxophone, we're in the key of A major. So remember, we're going to see F sharps, C sharps, and G sharps. But my first tip for you is how you can play this solo using just a single chord. Now, we've talked about this sort of thing before in Sax School, and you might have guessed that I'm talking about a pentatonic scale. Now, we're in the key of A major, and although there are different chords throughout the 2 4-bar sections of the solo, one pentatonic scale will cover pretty much all of the chords, and that for us is the A pentatonic scale. So the notes in the A pentatonic scale, it's dead easy. You may already know it. It starts on an A, B, C sharp, E, and F sharp. Sounds like this. Now, like always, you can put the A at the top, and in fact you can keep going all the way up your range and all the way down your range with that same pattern of 5 notes. Now, pentatonic scales are great because in their simplest form, they're really, really basic. There's only 5 notes in there, but if you take that 5 notes and those 5 notes and you wrap them into little patterns and melodic shapes, you can do all sorts of fun things with them, which you hear loads in pop music, contemporary music, this sort of, you know, smooth jazz, commercial sort of music. You do hear it in a lot of jazz as well, but definitely in commercial styles it's more popular. So all of that's just a pentatonic scale, but wrapped into little packages, little melodic lines that are doing over and over again. Okay, so you can actually use that pentatonic scale all the way through over this 8-bar section. And because the important notes, or some important notes from every chord as you go through the progression, are in that pentatonic scale, it's going to work. Okay? Right, I'm going to put the backing track on now, and I'm going to have a go at playing through that 8-bar section 2 or 3 times. I'm going to use that pentatonic scale. I'm going to do a couple of extra things, I think, as well. I can feel that coming on, and I'll talk about that when we're finished. But have a listen now and see how that pentatonic scale fits in. Here we go. Okay, so can you hear that that pentatonic scale works all the way through? I started by playing it just up and then down and then up and down in each bar and then started making up little melodies. But I did start to do something a little bit extra in there. Did you see what it was? Did you spot it? I started to use an extra note, a sort of what I call my sneaky notes. In this scale, I was using the C natural. Now, if we think about the key that we're in, A major, C natural is the third note of the scale, but lowered a semitone because we've got C sharp in the key signature, right? So normally the third note of the scale will be a C sharp, and I'm using the flattened C or the natural C. Instead of it being C sharp, it's just normal C, okay? So I'm taking that regular third and I'm lowering it half step. In other words, we're flattening it. And that's something that you hear a lot in bluesy music. And the same rules apply in this sort of instance where we're playing commercial music with a pentatonic scale. So flattening that third gives us a really cool, colourful note that works great. So you'll see that technique used a lot whenever you have pentatonic scales in. Okay, so it works really well, doesn't it? And every note is safe. So you should have a go at that now. Put that backing track on and try making up your own solo using just a pentatonic scale. Now you remember that it's very, very important to keep your rhythm very, very simple when you're playing through, when you're improvising. So you've got the note choices there, but you've also got to think about your rhythmic choices. And don't try and play too much. Keep it really, really simple. Simple little ideas always work better. So have a go at that. I'll wait for you and then come back and we'll talk about the next bit. Did you try it? Okay, so let's talk about the next step. So we've talked about just using a pentatonic scale. I've given you that sneaky tip of the C natural. And the last thing I want to show you about is a more advanced approach to this. It's based on the same principle though. So at the start we looked at using a single pentatonic scale for the whole thing. Now what about if we look at a pentatonic scale for each individual chord? That's going to give us more color choices in our melody. It's going to give us more possibilities when we're making up our solo. So let's go through those 8 bars and see if we can work out what those pentatonic scales are. So we know the first chord, if you look at your music, your first chord is an A chord. So we're going to use the A pentatonic scale like we have been already. But the second chord, it says B stroke A. Now that looks confusing, but what that actually means is a B major chord, but in the root at the bottom of the chord is an A. Okay, so you've got a B chord with an A at the bottom. Essentially, it's a B chord. So why don't we use a B pentatonic scale in there? Now the notes for a B pentatonic scale are B, C sharp, and D sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. Now you'll notice that between the A pentatonic and the B pentatonic, the main differences are that D sharp and also the G sharp. Okay, because we've got a B in both pentatonics, the A and the B. We've got the C sharp in both. We've got the F sharp in both, but we haven't got the D sharp and we haven't got the G sharp. So that's very important to recognize, and we'll come back to that in a second. In the third bar, it's B minor slash A. Just I should say too, in this style of music, you'll see a lot of those slash chords where they've got one chord in the right hand and a different note in the bass, and that helps to give you that color. But essentially it's a B minor chord. So we could use a B minor pentatonic there, and the notes for that would be B, D, E, F sharp and A. So not D sharp, normal D. B, D, E, F sharp and A. Now if we compare the B minor pentatonic to the A pentatonic, what notes are different? Both have got the B. The D natural is different, but both have the E, both have the F sharp, and both have the A. Okay, so the only important different note there is a D natural. That's important. And then in the fourth bar, we've got the A pentatonic again. So just to recap, then in the second bar, we've got the D sharp that's different. In the third bar, we've got the D natural that's different. Okay, there was the G sharp as well in the second bar, but the most important different notes are the D sharp and then the D natural. If we look at the second set of 4 bars, we've got the A pentatonic we already know, the B pentatonic we already know, the B minor pentatonic we already know, and then in the last bar, you could choose to just play the A pentatonic, but if you want to be extra tricky, then there are actually 4 chords in there and you could play the 4 different scales. because to keep it, I didn't want to make it too complicated, I've just written out 4 notes for each of those chords. The first chord is a B minor, so I've written B, C sharp, D, and F sharp. The second chord is an E11, so I've written E, F sharp, G sharp, and B. Then A, B, C sharp, and E. And then E over G sharp, so it's an E chord basically, but I've written in G sharp, A, B, and E. I just sort of inverted a little bit. I'll just play through all the notes in that last bar. The B minor, E11, the A, and then the E. So if you want to be really tricky, like I say, you could use those notes. Okay, so where do we go from here? Well, the next step now is to try to make up a melody line using all of those notes. Now here's a couple of things to think about, okay? Number 1, the first note from each scale in each bar is the strongest note. Always will be the strongest note because it's the root note of the chord, which makes it the sort of foundation of the chord. Okay, we always know foundations are strong, right? So the foundation notes in chords are the most consonant sounds, or the safest sounds. The second thing is to identify those different notes in there. So remember, in the second bar it's a D sharp. You might want to put a pencil circle around that and the G sharp. And in the third bar it's a D natural. Okay, so put a circle around those notes because those are good notes to weave into your melody because they give you a little bit of extra shape and color. And then the third thing to think about, like I said before, really concentrate on keeping your rhythm very, very simple and clear. You're better to have simple, clear ideas than to try and do too much. So I'm going to bung on the backing track again, and I'm going to have a go at playing through a solo a few times through. I'm going to start by playing up and down the scales, and then I'm going to experiment a bit and make up a melody just using these notes. And I might also stick in that C natural that we heard before in the first demo. Here we go. Okay, so could you hear that? Did you hear how all of the pentatonics work, but also because we're using different pentatonics now, we've got a lot more color when I'm making up the solo. I've got a lot more possibilities and things that I can do with the melody. So I think that's enough to talk about for one lesson. So what I suggest you do now is to grab that backing track, download it, and really spend some time going over and over and over with that. making up your own solos using the things we discussed in this lesson. Now, it'd be a great idea to use the Sax Tracks app and record yourself as you go through with the backing track. That way you can listen back and see which things really worked, make a mental note of them, and try and use them again next time. And when you're feeling really, really confident, I'd love to hear how you're getting on too. So don't forget to share a recording with me, or share it with your friends, and keep a track of your progress. And the final thing is, don't forget to leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think about the lesson. But just keep practicing regularly. Steady with this, and you got to be patient with it. Every time you do it, if you take your time and go slow, you'll get better. So gradually doing it more and over and over and over. Before you know it, you'll be making amazing solos up. Keep practicing hard. I'll see you next time.